So we're waiting for Mike Jones to reconnect. Reconnect, Mike.
There you
go. I'm in the middle.
All right, guys. So this is another episode of Drinks and Dogs. So cheers to my guys here.
Solancha.
KD. Cheers, guys. Today we have Dave from Canine Karma. Very great trainer. We also have KD Mathews, another great trainer. So we are on today. We're basically going to have some fun. And for everyone who is tuning in live, or let's wait from get on a little bit, tuning in live, we're no longer doing the Instagram Q&A. We're going to have you guys tune in and actually do the Q&A on the screen. There should be a little question box on the side. So towards the end of, Drinks and Dogs, we'll be talking. Once we stop talking to each other, we'll be trying to answer questions as much as possible. But for the most part, we're going to be having our little chat here. So how's everything going with you guys this week?
Woo! Busy. Like we were just talking about in the green room, getting reacquainted with everything that all of our clients and students are going through as I got a puppy. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you've seen I've been sharing little snippets there. And I don't care how long you've been training a dog, listen to a puppy scream in a crate. Like there's no skill set, craft, or science that makes you immune to what that experience is. And I really think it's good for anyone helping people with dogs to do that as often as possible so you can truly empathize with what your clients are going through. But other than that, like we talked about, big news tomorrow, July 1st, I open enrollment to my signature program, the Canine Blueprint. So anybody who's truly interested in an experience unlike any other and really learning how to communicate with your dog and understanding your dog and building that relationship, just hit me up on Instagram and I can get you the application. Tomorrow we start booking calls for interviews, so things are about to get crazy.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What about you, Dave? How's everything going over there?
It's good. Just still ridiculously busy. I never thought that you could be quarantined and stuck at home and working more than before.
Right.
Especially for someone who already works 7 days a week. So I went from driving from house to house to house to just sitting at my computer, lesson to lesson. And now that I'm supposed to be opening up in-homes again in like a week and a half, now I got to figure out how to balance that because I'm not getting any less online lessons and getting flooded with in-home requests because now that everything's opening up, everybody's been stuck at home with their dogs, allowing terrible behaviors, creating problems, or just dealing with problems, noticing problems, and now they're all like, "Oh fuck, we got to train our dog." Everybody wants help, like all at the same time, and I'm swamped beyond belief. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of like the funnier you said the same statement like that I was like talking about is that who knew that being a dog trainer during COVID or during anything like that would actually, if you're active online and you're pushing like that, you get busier. Like we've been talking about, Erin, like is my girlfriend and the manager, Dave, you met her, Kitty, you'll meet her eventually, but she runs like a lot of our, our basic day-to-day stuff. And it's insane to see like when we first had to go into shelter in place, the amount of people we got in from online. So like our online schedule got busy. So that became a 10-hour day when we were already running 16-hour days with in-person stuff 7 days a week. And now trying to combine both of those, it's like becoming one of those, like, it's almost like Tetris. It's like figuring out how the fuck do we fit everything in the same day at the same time. Like that's a big problem that we've been running into over here, is especially now with I have my daughter 5 days a week, which is I'm grateful and blessed for, but it's now like, okay, cool, so where's the rest of the hours of the day, and how does this even work out possibly? And I know, Katie, you shut down your program for what, 2-3 months?
2.5 months. It was beyond full. Like I was taking people in, and my work hours, my personal life just melted away because I didn't want to say no. And then I finally had to say no and stop and close enrollment. And now, I got several hundred people on the waiting list right now waiting for their emails tomorrow on how they can enter the program. And you know, and I want to ask both of you a question. Mike, we've talked about it, and Dave, well, for everyone watching, Dave and I have never spoke before, so I'm like frothing at the mouth at the opportunity to speak with another trainer. Let me ask you guys, like, I've been doing online training for a while. So when COVID hit, like, there was no learning curve. If any, I mean, I actually have a couple of trainers that I was working with that wanted me to consult with them on how to do online training. With that being said, what are your guys' thoughts on it? I mean, what have you liked about this different type of way to interact with a dog owner? What do you dislike? Strengths, weaknesses? Like, what are your thoughts, David?
Honestly, I was doing it for months before all this stuff hit, but I actually only started doing it. I was like almost peer pressured on social media to like start doing online lessons for a long time. Like I even had accounts like post on their stories and be like, everyone harass, and I finally just like I started doing it because I really didn't want to. I knew it would be effective, but I didn't know that the hidden gem of doing this is you only get dedicated people. And it's fucking crazy. Like, you literally only get the best clients you could ever have. I don't even want to go back to in-homes because like, and I do, obviously. I didn't go into this career field to sit in front of a fucking computer, but like I've had the best clients of my career in the last few months. Like I have clients who, like, when I end a lesson, I'm like, I don't even want to do any more today because it's not going to top that person. It's not going to top what they just did or said, or like they were fucking awesome, hyper dedicated. But you only get the best of the best. You don't get quick fix people online. And I never would have thought that was going to happen. And it's like, it's been an incredible experience due to that. Like, I love these clients. I hate sitting here all day because I'm like my dogs. I got to like, I got to do shit all the time. I get in trouble for multitasking all the time, but like I have to. So this is hard for me, but the clients are amazing. So like that, I never expected.
That's what something like, because they can't do this. Here you go. Here's the leash. They can't do that to you. Like, I think like the cool part, because we started PCU online a couple years back. I think 2017. So I was used to talking to people more so, but that was more about dog training. But when it came to like, or actually like teaching the aspects of dog training, like to another dog trainer, like more vocal stuff versus actual, like, watching the dog's behavior and doing those other things. But, the big switch and the things that I really loved about it is it had, like, for me, like, I'm very blunt, like very straightforward. There's no articulation to like the way I speak. It's very much like, do this shit. This is how the fuck it goes. This is what we're doing. If you don't do it, this is what you're going to get. I'm not going to explain all this other stuff, but what happened with COVID hit, and we started getting that influx of people wanting more online sessions throughout the world, and I'm talking to people, and like it's allowed me, one, to become a better communicator, and two, and like what David said, is like you get these like amazing ass clients on there. I have a client in like Texas, and she's a fucking I'll shout her on here. It's a bow type pup on like Instagram. Her community has come together so crazy for her dog's reactivity. Like, and she's seen so much improvement just for the work that they're doing and just following the homework that, like, after I'm like done talking to her and like working with her, I'm like, dude, like, can I just have all clients just like you? Because the amount of progression we've had since the COVID thing started and she signed up with on our online training is ridiculous. I mean, it's been awesome to see just the actual rehabilitation on there. So I mean, it's honestly, I think like the online training has helped me be a better communicator and better dog trainer. That's what I like about it. The other portion, the part that I don't like about it is that I'm so used to being in front of people all the time and talking to people and working with dogs, and especially on the protection side and like, even the behavior modification side. Like, just doing that, like, that's the only part that I'm like, okay, cool. I'm sitting in this chair talking to someone every single day. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to go work a dog or do something. And that's been the only drawback for me. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I've absolutely loved being a part of like the online, side of it. And seeing everyone else do it too. Like I think that's just, it's super cool because I mean, there's no other, I mean, I say in dog training that no other expansion or evolution in dog training that's allowed people to, you know, be able to communicate with amazing guys like yourselves, you know, and be in a different part of the world and know that it's actually functional. You know, like that's a big thing, you know, and get that information. And, you know, they can talk to fucking Dave, you're in like, what, New Jersey, and then Katie, you're like in Florida, like someone from like California can hit you guys up and do those things and like and be able to communicate with you guys and get those knowledge, like get that knowledge and understanding. I think that's, you know, been pretty amazing. Like that's been one of the cool things about it.
Well, you know, one thing I found is it opened up an opportunity for a type of education or education on a particular aspect of dog ownership that is very easy to, how do I say this, not give the time it deserves. And that is the human end of the leash, right? And when you're working, as you guys know, and I'm sharing this for all the people watching, the pet owners watching, so they can understand the context and why we're all saying what we're saying, is you can't touch the leash. As the dog trainer, you're behind this camera. There is no, we'll just do it like this. There is no ability for me to use my presence as a human to influence the dog's behavior. So what if you want your client to achieve success, at that point, what you need to do is you need to actually get into some real human end of the leash psychology. It ends up in a therapy session sometimes of talking about some painful emotional stuff because you have to change the owner's state of mind because you can't touch the leash. So your state of mind doesn't mean shit to that dog. Like you have to learn at that point how to work with people.
Yep.
And you know, over the years, I've seen a lot of people that were great with a dog. And if you dropped your dog off with them, they could achieve wonderful things. And 6 months after that board and training was done, there's all the behavior has regressed exponentially because the human never got the education they needed because the dog trainer sucked at talking to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I actually think, like, I've had conversations about this with other dog trainers, and I think that there's obvious sociological reasons for why that's such a common thing, but we don't take a step back far enough to look at it. Why do most people go into the animal world? Not dog trainers, just work with animals. The number one reason I hate people, but I love animals. You should never be a dog trainer if that's your reason. Like, you're going to be the worst fucking dog trainer ever. Unless your job is to, like, literally just be a dog trainer. Like, you show up at a facility, you get that board and train, you train the fuck out of them. You don't have to talk to anybody, then that's perfect. But if you don't like people, the person's the part that matters. Like, when you do a lesson with a client, they should be able to apply that to their next dog. And the next dog. Like, you shouldn't need us. If we do a good job, you shouldn't be calling me back for like you know, like you shouldn't have to call me back. If I did my job, the next time you get a dog, the only reason you should call me is if something pops up that you never experienced. We never went over this. This is never, you know, like if I have to come back for refresher lessons, maybe I didn't do my job well enough. Maybe I never taught you that well enough, you know, like.
And I think a lot of it is the independent. And like, this is one thing that I've noticed that's based on just how like our country is separated in just different areas. So like I've gone to, let's say I've traveled, you know, pretty much the whole United States now doing seminars and everything like that. In California, for example, like, you know, our direct board and train program, it comes with a lifetime guarantee and it comes with 4 transition lessons. So we can have the people process all the information each session by each session by each session, so we can have them kind of like process those things. And in California, it's been one of those things like where sometimes they don't grasp it because all this other stuff's happening. But when we had Minneapolis, when we were in Atlanta, when we were over there, like talking to people and like having them digest the information was a completely different way of like understanding. Like it was amazing to me that I can do, like when I did Forever Home Rescue stuff in Minneapolis, and I'd work with probably 15 rescue dogs all reactive at the same session. We do this big seminar, and like I teach people how to do it. The amount of retention that the amount of like retention they took when it comes to like understanding of behavioral stuff and like everything like that, and like social, like, you know, socialization, like they literally would do what my people would do in California in 3 weeks in about 3 hours. And they would understand that and take that in and that quickly. Whereas I have clients who will spend upwards of $6,000, $7,000 over here, but not retain or understand or take the homework down or do those things over here. And then we have clients who come in from different parts of the country, and you know, now different parts of the world, who come in and do those things, and they understand it differently. But it's like this weird thing when it comes to the way that people understand it and where they're from, that dictates the amount of what they can absorb. And I'm not entirely sure as to why the reason is, but I've definitely noticed that multiple times. And, you know, this is through in all my seminars throughout the country that I've seen, like, you know, just even talking to people now throughout the world, you know, just seeing the homework that they bring back to me and what they put out versus like what we get, you know, in person and here. It's definitely something weird. So like, that's one of like the cool parts that I've seen, like, and that's helped me change a lot of the way that I communicate to people, because, you know, that's something that I see with the volume that we see constantly.
I'm curious because in my opinion anyway, like any legitimate dog trainer, if you're doing a board and train, there's the client's signing something, right? For legal reasons, liability reasons. If not, that's like just fucking crazy. But there should be some form of contract with a board and train. Maybe not in homes, but with board and train, there almost always is. So I'm curious if yours has anything in there about them agreeing and understanding that they, like, part of it is a two-way contract. Like mine says, like, you are agreeing that you're going to maintain the methods and the tactics and the training. And, you know, so if I say, like, you can't do this and this and this and this, and like by removing these things from the dog's life and by adding this and this and this, not to make progress, and you go home and do the opposite, it's not my fucking training that failed because you're not using it, right? Like, you can't blame a personal trainer and say, like, they gave you a shitty workout plan when you never went to the gym, right? So if you tell someone, like, this dog can never be on your bed, just as an example, and the dog's sleeping in the bed every night, they can never point the finger back at you and say it's your training.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So I'm curious if you have anything in yours that says that, because I do, because to me this is the most important line in the whole thing, that, like, you have to keep training. It's not a magic trick. It's not like I just train the hell out of your dog and they're perfect forever.
That's, you know,
you got to keep going, whether it's with me or just on your own or whatever.
So we labeled it ground zero. So there's 4 different stages within it, and it's within our contract that if you don't necessarily follow or adhere to what the trainer is saying to do, then you're void when it comes to any issues outside of it, right? So, like, you know, so we do what's called our lifetime guarantee. So you do your 4 transitions, and you have to follow these consecutively after the dog comes home, right? So you have to understand, because they have to change their lifestyle. They have to change what they're doing. I think we just switched screens here. You have to follow the game plan. You have to start at ground zero, go from everything else, and then keep pushing up more from there. But if you don't follow those, then your plan is not lifetime guaranteed anymore. You lose all aspects of those things. So those are all things that, like, you know, we make sure that they're accountable as well, especially considering they're putting their dogs through this program. You know, that's another main source of the problem, is make sure we're educating the people and make sure that they understand, like, hey, like, you know, you're the reason why this dog's fucked up, right? Like, this isn't your dog's fault. Like, this is your fault, you know, when it comes to it. So, you know, we work with that.
Dave's having some technical difficulties.
Could you still hear me, KD?
I'm still here. You know, for me, I don't do board and trains anymore. So
you canceled them out?
I'm sorry?
You canceled them out?
Yeah. I mean, I'll take them in now. Any dog that comes in now, it's word of mouth, a favor, a hookup. It's something personal. For me to take a dog in, it's you got to pull some strings to get room in my house. The bulk of my time is spent online at this point. So, and I'm enjoying that so much more, like exponentially more, for obvious reasons of anyone who's done board and trains, like the headache, for me, I never got used to the stress and the anxiety of having somebody else's precious animal in my home. I'm very neurotic in that way, and like there's no relaxing, there's no anything, because I take that responsibility so seriously that I don't find it pleasurable. I find it very personally unpleasant because I care that much, and it stresses me the fuck out. So now for me to take your dog in, I mean, there probably isn't even a contract because it's such a hookup. We know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody who got that ear of mine to let me have your dog come in. But in the same token, though, the work that I am doing in my Canine Blueprint, the terms and agreement is like 3 to 4 pages long. And I repeat over and over again about your responsibility as the dog owner. You acknowledge that I'm providing you the tools. You're the one holding them. Your results will only be contingent upon your application of the information you paid to receive. If you don't change your behavior, your dog will never change theirs.
What's that? You made a post about that, Kitty, too, right? It's like, if you can't control the behavior that like you have as a person, whatever, like why do you expect that out of your dog? Type of a thing.
Yeah, your dog's behavior will only change when you change yours. Period.
Right. So it's the lifestyle changes that have the biggest influence. Like that's why so many people are like people who contact us, and I'm assuming it's got to be the same for you if you've started to have local people contact you, and then you offer online lessons to them. They're like, oh, that's not going to work for my dog. But the people online are like, I need online lessons really bad. Like I don't need to see your dog. Not for the first phone call. For the first phone call, it's just, I don't need to see your dog. I'm asking over 70 different questions. And I promise you at the end, you're going to learn a fuckload of stuff you didn't know. Or at least you're going to, I'm going to back up and explain the why behind all these things that you didn't, have before. And if you make these changes, you should get progress, noticeable progress before we do a lesson. If you don't get progress after an evaluation, if you don't have progress before our first lesson, you should probably hire someone else. Because you will. If you tell me you don't, you're either full of shit or you just didn't make the changes I told you to make. Because it's the lifestyle changes that changes everything else. I don't care how well your dog lays down, right? Like it's the relationship that matters, and what you do on a daily basis, how you interact, what you do in your day-to-day life with that dog, that's what matters more. The obedience is easy. Right, like anyone can train that. When you understand what's going on up here, that's easy. And so, like where anyone can train that, not understanding this, if you understand this, well, now you can really train obedience. Like now you can take that obedience to a much higher level because you understand how the brain works. Like I don't care, like that you can mechanically get your dog to sit. It's easy, right? Like you don't understand the animal, and I see that all the time, and it just makes me sad for the dog and sad for the owners. Because so many people have like phenomenal dogs or dogs waiting to be phenomenal, right? They're not because they don't have the right relationship. They don't have the right interactions at home. They don't have the right life. And it's not about routine. It's not about exercise. It's just like what you do every day. Like everything you do, every interaction is a teaching moment for that dog. What are you teaching them? Like something I ask people. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big breakdown that like most people don't understand that at all.
Yeah. Like, we always say dogs live in the moment, and they do. So like any moment they're in is like really extreme. I ask people all the time because they talk about this like with jealousy. People are like, oh, to be a dog, they're so happy. I promise you the only dog in my house that is out of their crate right now is miserable as hell. She's probably bored out of her fucking mind and wants to do something. So I guess dogs live in the moment, but you ever take a step back and think like, what moment is your dog in all fucking day? Right? Like what do most dogs do all day? Nothing. So they're living in the moment of extreme boredom. You know, like, what are you doing with that dog? Because every moment matters. And you get to control that if you understand how this shit works. You know, but like that moment matters. You know, and like you're the one playing God over there, so you control that. So if the dog's just bored out of their mind all day, just laying around the house like a typical dog, like I feel bad for that dog. You know,
and that goes into like the same theory, like when people talk about like, hey, oh, my dog needs freedom. My dog needs to be out and about doing this. They need freedom. You know, they're wolves or whatever the fuck did it. Like that's something I've commonly come close and in lots of contact in the last like few days with people just saying like, well, you're telling me to create my dog all this much, like, you know, like, you know, use place commands, use this stuff, use, you know, more duration things, because, you know, pets or whatever. And like I was like, you know, you put them in these positions. I'm like, yeah, it's like, yeah, because we've literally bred these dogs to be dependent. We've literally bred these dogs to be biddable. We've literally created them to be understanding and wanting of our direction, but yet now we want them to act like their great ancestors or whatever the fuck, you know, we were gonna call it. Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't, and nothing that the emotionally driven perspective spews is going to make sense. And what people forget is that, okay, so and this is an analogy I use with my students. You ever had a job where somebody became your boss, and they didn't become your boss because they have great leadership, interpersonal skills, management skills. They became your boss because they knew somebody, or if it was a sales manager position, they were a really good salesperson, so they got elevated to manager. And then you watch them completely struggle because they don't have the skill set to be a leader. They either become excessively permissive and weak, or they become tyrannical assholes because they don't know how to handle the power they've been given. Well, our dogs and so many of the people that we help, you know, their dogs are filling a void. And all this freedom that was given, and I love how Dave was talking about lifestyle. Yeah, this lifestyle that's been built for this pet dog, you've given the dog a bunch of things it hasn't earned, and that it probably doesn't have the skill set to do well at. Like, my dog's an alpha dog. No, your dog's not a fucking alpha dog. You're forbidden. I have put people on alpha dog probation in my Facebook group. Like, you're not allowed to use the word alpha for 3 months. Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
I hate that so much.
Like, your dog is not an alpha dog. Your dog is someone who got a promotion to manager and they didn't deserve it. That's why you're seeing the aggression. That's why you're seeing the anxiety, because they're in this elevated position that all the freedom and permissiveness, but they're like, I don't know how to deal with. Can't someone just tell me what to do? Like, who's my boss? And meanwhile, the owner's like, nobody is your boss. You are free. You are no longer a bait dog. You are no longer abused.
The bait dog.
They're all bait dogs.
They're all bait dogs. They're all scar on them, but they're all bait dogs.
And they're alive, but they were a bait dog.
So,
oh my God.
These dogs are suffering from anxiety because they don't want the role that has been erroneously and emotionally given to them.
Yeah. It's funny because I explained a very similar thing, because like it drives me crazy. Like, you ever start to talk, you ever say the word dominant or dominance and someone goes, oh, I don't believe in that. I didn't say pack leader. I didn't say alpha. It's a fucking personality trait. Being dominant is a personality trait. It's not about the one to rule them all. Like, it's not Lord of the fucking Rings. Like, it's just a personality trait, right? So like everyone knows that dominant person that takes over every conversation, has to be in charge, has to take over the party, has to be. And we know that super submissive person who immediately just like rolls over for everything, right? It's just a fucking personality trait. But responsibility is going to exacerbate that. So when you have a nervous, insecure dog and you're like, you're the new emperor, they're going to crumble. So like, I break it down to people. I'm like, when you have that narcissistic asshole friend who just thinks they're like the king of the world, and like they're just a part-time nobody, and one day the CEO just gives them their job, they're going to turn into a tyrant, right? But if it's an insecure, anxious, like that one friend that like can't even handle being 2 minutes late to work without like hyperventilating into a fucking paper bag and breaking down and like crying, and they're on Twitter about how their day's ruined and like they just can't handle pressure. Well, if they get that promotion, they're gonna be like having a full blown meltdown in the back office, right? It just, that responsibility is just going to like exacerbate that problem, you know. So when you promote your dog and you're like, well, Mini Mussolini over here, I don't know why he's such an asshole, or why he's so well, you gave him all this power and authority he's not supposed to have. He doesn't know what to do with it. He's not supposed to be a leader. We fucking created these animals to follow our lead.
Yep.
And we're like,
go ahead, motherfuckers, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know,
right now, someone's in Holland going, no, we did not. We created them to rule.
Yeah.
Right.
Horrible accent. I don't know a Dutch accent. I'm just fucking saying.
It's all Flemish. It's but even like, exactly what you guys are saying. Like that's like, I would say like that's the biggest issue in dog training, is the understanding that, you know, these animals are not wild animals that we are domesticating right now. They've already been domesticated and you know, just with genes, like they've already been domesticated for years, hundreds of years, and now would you say 2,000, Katie?
Over 15,000. It goes back to Neolithic, prior to human civilization.
So even say that. So we've created this level of dependent beings, and all of a sudden we're like, go ahead, motherfuckers, do what the fuck you want. What do you think's gonna happen? Especially with the most associative-based learners on the planet and opportunistic beings on the planet. What do you think they're going to do?
Form a community called Chaz in Washington. Oh wait, no.
They're gonna be
Too soon. Too soon. Oh, sorry.
That's gonna be over pretty soon.
I think if people just understood the average dog, every single legitimate study, not like the bullshit Facebook article, but like legitimate study, says that a dog's IQ ranges between that of a 2 to 3 year old human. To me, it's not at a 3. Like for someone who my whole fucking career was in early childhood, I've never met a dog who I'm like, this dog's as smart as a 3-year-old, because neurologically and psychologically, like intellectually, the jump between a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old is dramatic. And then from 3 to 4, but like that is dramatic. And then it just slows down significantly. It's no longer leaps and bounds in intelligence. It just, you know, slow. But I think if the average person understood, like, your dog is an intellectual 2-year-old, and you just told me you need your 4-month-old puppy to be more independent when nobody's there. Like, what? Yeah. Would you leave your fucking daughter in the backyard and go watch a movie? No? Then why are you doing it with your dog? Why would they know that's dangerous? Why would they know that's going to electrocute them? Why would they know not to dig under the fence? Why? They don't. And you learn the hard way when you do that, you know, like, or the dog does.
Yeah, when you play that associative-based game.
Yeah. Like, we act like they should be independent, but they're genetically wired to follow someone else. You're supposed to be that leader, right? Like, it's not about the pack leader. Just do your fucking job.
Yeah, just guide.
Yeah. Like, it is literally your job. If you are a parent, it is your job to lead that kid through life, right? It's the same responsibility.
That's like one of the, especially now with the personal protection program over here, just like growing like out of control, considering defunding and all this other, you know, bullshit that's happening. We're seeing tons and tons of that, because, you know, that's one thing like a lot of people don't understand is that when people are influxing like this is defunding talk, it's every agency is different. And what's the first thing to go on every agency? Training. Yeah. And it's going to be that way, right? So like now people are like, okay, cool, like the training's gone, so now we have to do all this other stuff. But like a lot of people are catching on to that. We're starting to see more personal protection clients and everything coming in. So that's where we're like, okay, cool, we got to talk to people about how to do this stuff and how to understand how to manage your dog properly while you're not there. I mean, if they're a personal protection dog, doesn't mean that they got to be civil in all aspects of things. They have to be with you and understand how to react at that same point. but that environmental desensitization is, extremely important. But I mean, like, that's, it all falls into the same play. It's like, okay, cool. Like, can I have my dog run around the house and be cool the whole day and guard my house or do all this stuff while I'm doing whatever I'm doing? I'm like, no, you can do a place command, and then have your dog hang out for a little while and then work that scenario, or you can put them in the crate if they're not managed properly. But then everyone comes back like, what's the point of having a personal protection dog? I'm like, well, that means you literally have a loaded firearm right next to you. You have to treat it as such. If you're not going to be attentive and understanding and work the same thing and understand what the value of what you have next to you, then put it in the crate, put it in a place where it needs to be at. Because every single moment, and especially the way that the dogs see things, everything's in pictures and understanding of what happens. So what picture are you showing? What are you teaching them at this point? And not to say years later down the road, the dogs won't understand exactly what they're doing. Being in a place like my dog Cerberus, like he can hang out with me here. He can do whatever he's going to do. If something were to pop off, like, would he go 100%? Would he break his command a couple times and I have to correct? Yes, but I'm obviously very vigilant on what he's doing if I put him in a place. But that's a lot of stuff that people don't understand. Like, they're like, well, my dog keeps doing this. Okay, well, where's your training at? Like, what are you doing in your training? Are you actually like watching them do their thing through the whole entire day? Or are you, just want them to be like a little trick pony, like, oh, saying, hey, come here, let's roll around, let's do all this other stuff real quick? Or is it actually something that we're behaviorally conditioning?
Yeah.
That's
people want that lap dog that on command transforms into like fucking Megatron and like kills everybody and then goes back to cuddling, and like it's really not the way it works. Like, you're training a weapon. If you don't know how to use this, you can't put it in your hands, like, and it's not something to be like, lackadaisical about. It can't just sit around all day. If that's what you want, you don't need a personal protection dog. But I think everybody wants the Dobermans off The Simpsons that just prowl around the perimeter, and they're like this organized pack, and they just do their own thing outside, and like, you don't have to do anything. They're just trained and perfect, and it's not the way it works, unless you just want a monster dog that like kills everybody who walks into your backyard. But that's not a personal protection dog either.
Yeah, I mean, it's like multiple different aspects of it as well. That's like one of the crazier things about it. So, Katie, you've done protection training, right?
Yes, I have. Yep. I mean, I started many, many years ago, like on my own. So it was trial by fire. It was going in the hood and, working hood dogs because I was a nobody. And, when you start that way, I got to tell you, you work a lot of weak dogs. And I wouldn't trade the way that I got into bite work. I wouldn't trade it for anything, because had I gotten right into a club and working sport dog, like performing dogs bred to do it, I don't think I would have learned a fraction of what I learned in the hood working with dogs that weren't meant to do it, but we did it anyway. And holy crap, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from working the weak dogs in street applications, as opposed to the dog who comes out the box and you just need to show him the right pictures and he's already this, he's already that. Yeah, I've been bit a couple times.
And so like what you just said, like that is essentially my upbringing. So like I didn't learn from proper genetics. I didn't learn from anything like that. It was literally just like, all right, cool. So you have this pit bull, you want to start doing, protection work with it. Let's look through the drive, see how they respond to certain things, and then, it helps you kind of analyze, each individual drive that dog has and what their thresholds are. Cause you can see, when you work prey, all of a sudden you square up real quick. I worked a dogo the other day and like I was working her in prey on this other stuff, like literally give her the bite. Cool. I took like the whip out and I just turned my shoulder over and I went like this to my side and the dog's right in front of me. The dog literally backed up behind the owner. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I have to tell them that the dog didn't want to come out of it. I had to go back into prey and moving certain things. But even my space, I would say I was 6 feet away from the dog, and I literally my movement was from shoulder to here, snap, bring it back, and the dog went right behind.
But I bet you the dog's grandfather had killed 20 pumas in Argentina. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, they've all killed like and saved like 20 children.
A billion amount of boars.
It's a family on a farm in Texas.
Yeah. So like, but then I ended up was able to bring the dog back through using a little more prey work. But I 100% agree. Once you work with dogs, and this is something I've even taught like my guys as decoys, my apprentices. It's easy to fucking put a Mal or a Dutch or a Shepherd or a Rottie or dogs who are genetically disposed to this like thing. It's super easy to do that, especially to build. But when you're looking at building dogs who have no fucking business and being in the bite world, like being in that world and building those drives and that, and not even just the drives, just the clarity in the bite. If you can do that, that's when you're on to something different, because now you're creating more confidence within the dog. Now you're creating a different personality within the dog, and you're having them kind of develop within like their own little psyche. You know, I've done that with my own dog's Bear, who's like, you know, he's tattooed on my hand. You know, a dog who literally had zero drive whatsoever. It took me a year, and that was my experiment. And dog was like, all right, cool. This was 8 years ago. I was like, all right, I'm going to try to make you this. And I worked with my mentor, Terry Macias. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to try to make you like a shit. Like, and I think at that point it was IPO. And actually, no, it still Schutzen. Whenever they fucking kind of changed the goddamn rules on this thing. So like, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to get you your BH on this and just work you through that. But like, just creating that drive and creating that understanding and clarity is the most important thing. But that's where like the decoy aspect of it comes in, because you can get a bunch of dumb shits come in there and just, you know, slap a whip and work in defense and do all this great stuff. But understanding like what, you know, the paralanguage and what the understanding of like what the dog is thinking while you're doing these things is so important. And like, that's where I put my guys through the fucking ringer, you know, when it comes to, you know, decoy work. I was like, everyone has to understand what that dog is thinking in front of you, and like what, you know, different positions, different movements, when they're tired, when they're not tired, when they're in heavy prey, when they're not in heavy prey, when they're in all these other things, distractions, environmental stuff and all that stuff. So I mean, like, you know, it's just like, I think that's helped me quite a bit, you know, just in general, when it comes to just dog training in general. Like, you know, that ability to work with dogs who maybe not be genetically inclined and build with it.
Yeah. Like I don't think you learn. I don't really think you learn much from an easy dog. You'll learn, but not much. Like if I didn't have, like, I got 2 dogs in a row everyone told me to euthanize. That's my own fucking dog. Like you know, and then like I got 2 in a row that were just fucked. So like if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have the knowledge I have today. If I listened to these people, I would not have the knowledge today. I mean, zero, like there's really well-known dog trainers all over Instagram that told me to euthanize them and get rid of them. You know, there's trainers all over Long Island that were like, dude, just get rid of this fucking dog. And he's like the happiest idiot in the world. He knows like 50 fucking commands. He's super easy to train. Yeah, he's never like a PSA 3. Did I just disappear? Oh, there we go.
You're back.
But yeah, like he'll never be like this monster in bite work, but that dog wouldn't bite. That dog wouldn't eat out of my hand. Like he wouldn't, like I'd go to hand him food and he'd turn away like it was going to hurt him, and like he wouldn't bite. As a Dutch Shepherd, you know, like in now look at him, right? Like, yeah, he'll never be this monster, but to build him up to where he is, like the education I got from that, if I trained 15 easy dogs, I still wouldn't have gotten that education.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
I mean, I worked that dog too.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was fucking hard, right? Like he's smart.
Dude, he loved it, man.
He'll take the easy way out and like go through rather than over, and like he's hard. Like he's not an easy dog. And like he's an enigma. Like he's the most inconsistent dog in certain way, or he was, not really anymore, but like he lights up. He would light up one day and then not the other. Great grips one day, not the other. And when you keep working at that and you iron shit out in a dog that's like impossible, that's gonna make you so much better. You know, like it's gonna teach you so much more. Like a dog like that, to me, like when you get that dog that's just fucked and you're fighting science and genetics, if you keep fighting, you're going to learn a lot. As long as it's a fair fight, obviously. You're not trying to make the dog do shit they shouldn't. But like if you stick to a dog that's that hard and you keep going, you're going to learn so much more. That's why people who give up on their dogs, what lesson did you learn on that?
Yeah.
Like, that besides quitting is easy. Like you didn't learn anything. If you stuck to it a while, you might have like blown your own mind,
Tell me your most memorable story about that dog in the context of his evolution with you, because you got me like totally curious.
With Zero, fuck. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I had like a moment. There was never like a light bulb moment, because it was like one day he would make this massive leap forward, and the next day it's gone. And it's not like that today. Like today he's awesome, and like his consistency is like dramatically higher. He's still not 100%. I can't rely on him to be like really, confident every day or whatever. I can only rely on him to be the happiest crackhead dog I've ever seen. But I would take him. I mean, there was moments where it's like I went outside when the landscapers were like mowing around, and there's a guy with a leaf blower, and he's chasing a flirt pole. And that was like the craziest shit he'd ever done at that point, like that. He just conquered like 9 fears at the same time, or like training in like a shopping mall parking lot in the rain on a Saturday. There's cars everywhere, traffic, noise, and he's just prancing away down the parking lot, like healing and working and tugging and playing. Like those are like, to me, those are like monumental milestones in that dog's life, because he literally wouldn't eat out of my hand. He wouldn't bite. He wouldn't play. He was the best puppy I've ever seen in the crate, because it was the only place he wasn't terrified. So for him to be this like the happiest dog in the world today, never should have happened, according to everybody else. But like he was the dog. Just get rid of him. My pit, like just get rid of her, put her to sleep, put her down, sell her, get rid of her, drop her off, because her dog aggression was unfixable. She's the only dog in my house that's naked. And I'm walking by with board and trains, reactive dogs. Like, she doesn't give a shit. Like, every dog can change. How much is obviously up for question, but they can all change. But I stuck to that. And, like, if I didn't, I wouldn't be a dog trainer. If I just gave up, if I listened to every other dog trainer, I never would have been one. Because I wouldn't have learned much if I just gave up and got an easy dog, like I see so many people do. I'm struggling with this dog, new dog. New dog. Like, that sucks. Like, stick to it, and then your next dog will be fucking awesome. But it's like this. People don't have that work ethic these days.
Huh? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you talking about that perseverance word?
Pressure.
Mike can't say it out loud because he's in California. So think words like punishment will get him booted off the call. Words like perseverance will get him. If he says perseverance, like he'll get like his internet will just collapse.
I can't even say the words without my fucking
no. And
willpower
open his door.
Right. But no, I mean, and that's like the biggest thing. Like, one thing I've always talked to like a lot of our clients and everything like that is that, when we're talking about, working with your dog, like if it's not the perfect dog for you, what the fuck is that the dog's problem? That's your problem. Like, you have to understand how to really communicate with that individual dog, because each individual, I mean, like that's the same thing we deal with here, is that each individual dog that comes into us might not be the perfect dog for what we're doing and what our goals are going to be, especially with boarding trains. But that's idealistically what we want, because we want to learn off of each individual dog and see where they're at. And like, that's what I tell all my guys is that, you have to learn from the dog in front of you. We're not following a protocol. We're not following a format. We're not doing this cookie cutter box shit where, we're, all right, cool. This is what this dog learns by. All right, let's do that. This is what this dog understands is positive. So this dog understands is, negative. We understand the rankings of what positive and negatives are, and then going from there. But that's drastically helped me. I can't even tell you how many dogs we've gotten recently. The other dog trainers like, all right, youth that dog, and like the dog's like perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like
It just
completely
didn't
fine.
fit their program.
It just didn't fit. Yeah, it didn't fit into what the fuck they were thinking about, which is absolutely insane to me. Because if you're in this industry and you're doing dog training and you're doing this stuff like that, you're in this for the dogs, right? So why are you recommending euthanization for a dog who is reactive? And Katie, you and I had this conversation before because it's aggressive. There's two fucking different things here. You know, is the dog naturally aggressive, genetically aggressive? Is it actually reactive because of a behavioral thing that they've experienced in the past? Like, what are you doing? And then understanding that the fact that dogs aren't as simple as what most people think that they are. You know, dogs are still living beings. They understand and reflect and associate certain events to certain reactions and continuously do that over and over again. You know, like that's a huge thing for people to understand and like understand and, you know, just and actually apply.
Yeah.
What do you got on that, Katie?
Nothing. I agree with that because, like, Jesus, I mean, we beat that horse to death. I mean,
Right.
you know, our dogs are going to do what we let them do. Our dogs are going to do what we teach them to do. And, you know, now we can get down a whole rabbit hole of, like, how to just live your best life, which is instead of running from challenges or running around obstacles, you climb the fuck over them. And guess what? You get on the other side and suddenly you're stronger. Oh, my gosh. Like, imagine that.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
About getting stronger and better? And
Well, we are, but Mike isn't.
oh, okay.
He's in California. Not allowed to.
So to give everyone reference on this conversation, the last time I had Mike Nesbitt and I had Katie on, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about, but literally every time I talk about like correction, like my phone will cut out. Like it would literally just be gone, and I would pop back in, and that happened. I don't even think
Multiple
times,
times.
3-4 times. And then I stopped. Then I was like, started watching like what I was saying, and I stayed on the rest of the actual Drinks and Dog.
Yeah.
Ida might be a shareholder in this crowdcast we're using.
I need to. Fuck. I mean, shit. This is the first time I heard about it.
Oh my
So what were
God.
you saying, Kitty?
I was gonna say, what do you say we jump in and tackle a question?
All right, let's do it.
I'll pull one up here. All right. Brittany asks, is it okay for your dog to never interact with other dogs and people as long as properly socialized around those stimuli? I'll run quick on that. I know I'm real funny about words like always and never. So in my program, I tell my students, regardless of whether they have a puppy or an adult dog, for like the first month at least, I cut off interactions because the people don't know what socialization is. They don't know what good interactions are, bad interactions are. And typically most of my students, when they start, they don't have an effective relationship with the dog. So as a ground, you know, Mike, to use your term, as a ground zero, I'm like, stop. No interactions with anybody other than the immediate family for now. And then I kind of expand it to, all right, when the dog is on leash, no interactions with dogs and other people. You know, as you get more savvy, as you start to read your dog and understand how to read other dogs and other people, you know, I'm not going to say never. I mean, with puppies, so the puppy I'm raising right now, no one's ever touched him while I'm holding a leash. But I brought him over to a buddy's house last night, and I took him off leash in the house, and they were cuddling, and there was all kinds of interactions and, you know, appropriate things. Because that's the picture I want him to see. The only thing I want him to get out of that is being touched by somebody else, dealing with it appropriately. But the context, it wasn't while we were on the leash and walking down the street, because I don't ever want my dog thinking that when they're on leash walking down the street, everybody else is full of awesome things. So, you know, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. So I'm not going to do the other 45 minutes that I usually do on socialization and what a crazy horseshit it is. It's really about exposure. And when they do interact, ensuring ahead of time that you already know it's going to be a good interaction, which probably means no fucking strangers, because they're all like, they're going to fuck up. It's someone you trust, someone you know, who you can say, if my dog jumps on you, don't pet them. If my dog does this, don't touch them. Here's what I want you to do. And you can control them. And as far as other dogs, I'm real sketchy about that. Especially with puppies, the only way I will allow a puppy to interact with another dog is if I know the other dog, it's an adult. Puppies and puppies teach each other how to be fucking assholes.
Yep.
That's all they teach each other.
Blind leading the blind.
Yeah. I will allow a puppy to interact with a seasoned brood bitch who's had other litters. She knows how to deal with puppies. Or that dog who I've seen with puppies and he's just like, he's cool, he's chill, he enforces, but he's not a dick. Like, I need to vouch for the credibility of the adult that my kid is hanging out with.
Yeah. I actually agree with all of that. Like, I don't like the older dog thing. I explain that to people all the time. Like, well, my puppy's got to play with puppies. What? Why? Why is that so important? Why do you want your puppy learning from another puppy when they should be learning from like a responsible, well-trained, socialized, calm, like with out of my 3 dogs, everybody always thinks that, like, first of all, they just think our dogs are going to play together, and they're not. And they instantly go to 0 because they're like, oh, well, your Dutch is super happy. And I'm like, yeah, he's also crazy. So he might trample your fucking Yorkie into the dirt trying to be its friend. Like, just because you think this dog is like this or that doesn't mean they're like this is a good fit. And they don't have to socialize. Like, if you're gonna say they're a pack animal, why are you also saying they should socialize? That doesn't make any sense. Like if you're calling it a pack animals don't go play with other packs unless it's a fucking war. Right?
Gang war, man.
Right. Like, baboons have literal gang wars. Like, actual gang wars. Like, a pack of baboons will fucking go to war with another one. That's their socialization. Like, we can go to the bar and get a drink. We can have a beer. We can talk for an hour. Wasn't that socializing? We didn't have to beat the shit out of each other on the floor. Like, playing and socializing are not the same. Your dog does not have to play with every fucking dog they see. And like I'm the same way. Like, I'm really careful and cautious and like neurotic about dogs socializing together. If it's humans, that's different. And like, people usually think that if they'll, they ask like if they can pet my dog, I'm going to say no. And like, I don't give a shit if it's the right dog in the right setting and you ask and it's the right circumstances and But if I can't get that dog back from you, then no. If you pet my dog and play with them and all I need to do is say their name and you're just a fucking peasant again, then I don't care if you pet my dog, right? But it depends on the dog. If it's a brand new puppy, now you're a new resource and I'm lower. Like I was really valuable, but they just had a party with you, so I'm a little less valuable now. And the strangers are a lot more valuable than they used to be. Like, I don't need that. That doesn't benefit.
That's why you don't go to a nude beach on a first date.
Right. There you go.
You wait a couple months until you got her hook, line, and sinker, and then she can see all the ding-a-ling she wants, and you're still King Dong.
That is one way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to share your personal story with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's how it works, I mean, like, for us, like, the thing that we do consistently with all the dogs that come in is that immediately when we go out, the dogs are working for food in any environment, in every environment. They don't care about other people. I have no problem telling someone to fuck off when it comes to asking to want to pet my dog, because it's the same reason, like Dave, you're saying, it's like, we don't want to have a value to any other dog, any other person. When it comes to people or when it comes to dogs, like, oh, my dog's friendly, I just want to meet. I was like, no. It doesn't matter, because every dog, can be as friendly as possible, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be friendly together. That's one aspect that most people don't understand, is that, even as people, people can be as friendly as fuck. Someone can be nice as shit, but if we meet someone else who's nice as shit, if our personalities don't conflict, are don't actually match up, we're gonna have an issue. It's like the same thing. It's like the mall experiment. I tell people is like, as you walk through like a mall, for example, and you see somebody else, and like there's certain people that you just want to punch in the fucking face without even like talking to them. Now imagine your fucking dog. Like now imagine your dog walking through without being able to communicate or understand or be able to break down that mentally in a way of like, okay, I don't need to do that because I will go to prison. I can't do that thing. So for dogs, that's like even more consciously, because now we're developing it more mentally, behaviorally for us and for dogs. So now we have to correct that behavior of them showing attention. If that's something that's naturally, what they have, they're like, oh, hey, that dog is over there. Or let's say, the dog has gone to a dog park multiple times and they've, been a bunch of dogs, or they've been in a doggy daycare for, God knows how long, like that's all part of the problem. So breaking that down and understanding like, oh, hey, like we are reinforcing that behavior through these things without actually stopping it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's tons of things that we can go into it. But yeah, for us, I mean, we tell people like in the beginning, it's ground zero. When it comes to socialization, socialization is being out and about. When it comes to pack stuff, that's, in the house, the people in the pack, or like what Katie said, your friends, the people who you're going to be around a bunch, that is particularly their pack. That's their people. That's who they're around. It's not the world. It's not everybody. They're not going to be friendly with anybody. So that expectation is, quite ridiculous.
Well, people also forget how the dog's brain forms and the life stages. People ask me, well, I need to socialize my pup. And I'm like, well, technically, that should have happened before your puppy got to you. If you bought from a responsible breeder during weeks late 4, definitely weeks 5 and 6 into 7, things start getting touchy. They should have been socializing when that puppy had no fear of anything, because fear had not developed in the dog's fucking brain yet, and they were just dumb and curious and crazy. That's when the puppy should have had all kinds of kids touching it, adults touching it, other older dogs in the kennel, the house around it, because the dog didn't have any fucking fear then. Once that dog gets home to you at the arbitrary number of 8 weeks, which is most states, things have changed. Things have changed. So today the dog could not give a shit about that garbage can, and tomorrow the puppy could look at that garbage can and go, whoa, that's kind of weird. And if something happens on that day, yeah, you're going to have some issues. The real people touching the dog and all of this, ideally, it would hopefully happen with a responsible breeder during time while the puppy's being weaned and before their brain just started changing. I mean, that's just how the dog's brain works. And when people go adopt, don't shop, I'm like, well, you do realize that responsible breeders are doing really wonderful things to make your dog a well-adapted member of your family.
Yeah, and that's it. So just give an example as far as like what we do is with our dogs when we breed we've done only private breeding, is like our dogs, when they eat their food, they're literally listening to a soundtrack of riot noises, flash, bang grenades, fucking like they eat off a tarp like for 8 weeks. And then I always tell all of our clients, like, before the first 16-week period, you need to bring that dog the fuck out in the world and show them everywhere. Don't let no one touch them, but show them everything. And then go from there, because like you said, like some behaviors are temporary as a puppy, and you have to rely on genetics at the end point. But I mean, the same, you can also do tons to help your dog be comfortable in every social scenario. And especially, when it comes to working with food, making sure that they are completely engaging with you and not caring about anyone else. When it comes to the environmental aspect of things, that's super important too. Let's see here. I'm working on the screen, so I'm always over here.
Dave, what are some of the things you see in the context of socialization with regards to problems that you have to fix with your clients? So like they've come to you, they have a dog, and the socialization words start getting thrown around. You know, what problems are you seeing that things that they've done before they've came to you, and how are you going about trying to help them?
I actually see, and when I say this to clients, their like brains explode. But like, I see way more people with problems because they had everyone touching the dog and like playing with. I see way more problems from the socialization than from not doing it. Like, I honestly, like, I don't know if I've ever met a dog where I was like, the real problem, they weren't socialized. I don't think I've ever come to that conclusion in my entire life. Like, just like I've never come to the conclusion in my fucking life that the problem this dog has, it came from a lack of love. Like, that doesn't exist. You know, like we fuck everything up by putting too much fake love, right? Because we show our dogs love in ways that don't make any sense, that would never show love to a human or to an animal.
So let's
right?
break this apart real quick, Dave. Let's break this apart real quick. So, socialization. What does that actually mean?
To me, they don't have to ever make contact. They don't even have to have like a real interpersonal interaction. But just being around each other in like a calm, stable way, to me, that's better socialization. So I'll have boarding trains where like I'll do their training session in the living room with 2 or 3 dogs in place commands, and like they're not playing, they're not walking up sniffing each other and licking their ears and shit. But it was still enough for that dog to like calm down in the presence of other dogs, and like, yeah, they might not be rolling around on the floor, but it's still enough socialization for them to get used to other dogs and comfortable around people. Like, you can walk your dog around Home Depot for an hour and leave and nobody touched them. But weren't they still technically getting exposure to people for an hour the entire time in a way that's not going to fuck them up? Because you don't have this idiot who's like, let me grab your dog by the face and give him kisses. Like, you know, like, that's still a form of socialization. It's just not what people think, because they think they have to be like engaged with one another, and they don't.
Not at all. KD, socialization.
It's exposure training. Dave just said the word exposure. That's what I use the word exposure. And I'm not talking about like dropping my pants in the middle of a public place exposure. I mean, like, you know, I'm talking about the dog being everywhere and learning that you're still the biggest, coolest motherfucker in the room, you know? And so I just the other day, to tell you a story, I took both Elmo, who's got some issues, and his son Gizmo out to the cliche Home Depot trip, right? And it was our first time with both of them. And I had one of my clients who's actually local. He's got a gorgeous little Rottweiler pup, and it was his first time out too. And I prepped the guy. I prepped him the day before because he's like, "What do I got to do to get ready?" And I typed out, "Say this 100 times tonight. No, thank you, but thank you for asking." And he's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "That's your fucking script. To every fucking schmo who's gonna come on out here and be like, 'Can I get the puppy?' You're gonna say, 'No, thank you, but thank you for asking.' That's 2 motherfucking thank yous in one sentence. If they get a problem after that, they can go fuck themselves." So we go to Home Depot. We work in the parking lot, and his puppy was getting kind of starting to get low. I mean, it's Florida. It was 97 degrees by 9:30. So I'm like, now's the perfect time to work our way to the entrance. We're not going inside today, but the puppy's getting tired. Now I want to go to the entrance. Higher stimulation, lower energy level. I like that. I like that mix up. So, you know, we're working on just engagement. That's it. That's it. Leash pressure, engage. Leash pressure, engage. So of course some lady starts walking up, and as she's coming up, she takes her Corona mask off, and she starts leaning over, and I'm watching him. He takes the puppies, of course, at the end of the leash, and he takes a step in the direction that the puppy's pulling. And I'm like, you motherfucker, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And I'm standing behind him. My coffee hasn't kicked in, so I'm in a real shitty mood. And she starts to lean over, and she's like, oh, and he's like, oh, you know, we're kind of working, we're working on some stuff. And he's like kind of half holding the puppy back. And she's about to make contact. And finally, I got to step up. I'm like, thank you so much for not petting the dog. We're working on teaching the dog to focus on his daddy right now. You know, that gets diffused. I look at him and I'm like, you motherfucker. I gave you one fucking job to do and you almost just fucked it up. He's like, well, you know, I didn't know. I said, listen, time out. You got a Rottweiler. It's a nice Roddy too, by the way.
Oh,
it's
nice.
a nice little boy. He's a fucking pisser, let me tell you. I said, you got a young male Rottweiler. You need to absolutely be a leader in his life, and he needs to have respect for you. Who the fuck would respect someone who can't even tell a complete stranger not to pet their dog? Dude, until you grow the hair on your ginger ass to be able to tell a stranger to walk off, don't expect that dog to respect you, because I don't fucking respect you right now. And yeah, we had a moment. I said, he's a young frog. He's jacked. And I'm like, dude, put those muscles away, dude. They don't mean shit right
now. But that's essentially what it is. I mean, like, you know, both of you guys said, you know, like that's the misconception of what socialization and understanding of what social interaction is completely different for most people. And like, that's like the crazy thing about it is that, you know, let's say us three, we want to, let's say we'll use a bar, for example. We go to a bar, we're going to be talking to each other, right? We're not going to be talking to the immense amount of crowd or whoever, I mean, you know, Priya or, you know, back after COVID, we're not going to be actually talking to a bunch of different people. We're going to be talking to each other and we're going to be interacting. We don't care about what's out there, you know, and that's the same thing with dogs. Is that's like my opinion, like, you know, exactly what you guys both said, is that I want them to think, and Kid, you said it as well, is like, I want them to think I'm the coolest motherfucker in the world. What everyone else has is zero. That's furniture. That's even, I mean, I don't want them to do it, but that's stuff you pee on. Like that's not there, right? Like, you are literally here the whole entire time. Like, who gives a fuck about them, no matter what they do and like what they say? So I mean, I think you guys brought it up perfectly fine.
If you want a pet that doesn't give a shit about you, isn't that what cats are for?
Right. Hey, cats are fucking assholes, man. I still to this day can't. I wanted, only reason I wanted a cat once was because I wanted to teach him how to, you know, take a shit on the toilet. That was pretty much it. That was pretty much now. And like at that point, I probably think about rehoming the cat after we've trained him how to shit on the toilet like a person. That was only the reason. I
mean, yeah, I'm not gonna get on the anti-cat. Dave, do you have like 6 cats or something? I mean,
no, I had cats growing up, but I'm allergic now, so I can't have one even if I wanted to. But to me, cats are the biggest assholes in the world because they deserve to be. Like, they are the apex predator of the planet. Like, dogs are pathetic in comparison to a cat. Put a 65-pound cat against a 65-pound pit.
That's over.
Is shredded into tiny, like, confetti of dog. Like, it would be humiliating. Cats are fucking superior. But we can't train them, so we have dogs, right? Like, if you could have a fucking tiger, you wouldn't be like, yeah, but my German Shepherd's cool too. No, it's not. Get your tiger out. Like, that's awesome, you know? Like, but we can't. They're too.
Be careful. Carol Baskin is watching, David. She might come. Be careful. She's out there.
I'll send my tiny dog.
Properties.
Well, you know, you were talking about the dogo earlier. You mentioned that, and that's what I had to crack the Puma joke. You know, like, people believe the most ridiculous things. Now, mind you, I'm an only child. I grew up with my face in animal books, like animal encyclopedias. I was obsessed with every kind of animal. I used to know all the Latin genus, species, phylum, all that shit. Like, if you look at a 80-pound mountain lion, puma, cougar, whatever floats your fancy vernacular, like, and then you look at a 110-pound dogo, you look at their anatomy, you look at how the legs move, you look at the paws, you look at the
Mouth.
pelvis, you look at the spine and the flexibility, and then you look at the fucking mouth. And you're gonna tell me that dogo fought a equal-sized or even slightly smaller cougar? You're
Alone.
full of bullshit. Like, those cats are murderous sons of bitches.
They also leave out that when they do hunt, they have like Kevlar armor on. But when they supposedly saved the family and got the baby out of the burning building and fought off an army of fucking lions, they were naked. Naked and alone.
Completely. No
All I had
collar,
was my
no nothing.
liquor, and they fought off everybody. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, we got to give credit where credit is due with regards to the feline order of animals. I don't care to own one, but I mean, listen, I watched Mark Singer in the 80s in the Beastmaster when he had a fucking tiger walking next to him. And you know what? I wanted a loincloth and a tiger too.
Yep.
I got the loincloth, I just don't have the tiger yet.
All right.
I mean, like the best part about it too is like when you talk about like wild cats, like big wild cats too. If you spend time with them or spend time with like wolves, like the difference of what, like, okay, cool, I'm sending a dog out for you. Like, that's kind of wild here. Okay, like this, I've sent multiple dogs out for you because the way that they interact, the way like their jaw shape, the way that their structure is, and the way that their fighting style is. I mean, man, that's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, there's a reason you could never decoy for a cat.
Right?
It's literally impossible. It wouldn't.
And Eric wants a
do
fucking well, I don't even know what the fuck they call them, but those little jaguar cats, Savannah cats. So you can decoy for that cat.
Everyone
I'm like,
who gets that, it ends with one day it killed my dog. Like, everyone who gets one, like, one day it ate my daughter. So, you know, I have a fish now. Like, you don't need a jungle cat. Like, who the fuck? You guys have an army of fucking Malinois and Dutches. And, like, you don't need a jungle cat.
I got a garage full. I literally have like a full troop.
There's gonna eat one of your dogs one day. Like Ozzy is gonna like turn into this cat's lunch. Like, that's how unstoppable cats are. Like that one cat takes on like 5 dogs. They all run away.
She had a little cat. It was Pasta. His name is Pasta. It was like his teeth were that big, and he was tiny, but he was a little motherfucker. But he was my best friend. And then she had Lou. Lou was probably one of like the most sneakiest cats ever in the world. And I'm like, okay, like, you motherfuckers are predators. She would literally crawl up, and then all of a sudden, just bang, hit you. I'm like, you psycho ass motherfucker! Like, you're fighting a war in your head. No, so we're off of cats here.
Yeah, we need to be, because I'm having some like PTSD from some previous. Here's a question. This might require. This is from Michelle Class. Thank you for your question, Michelle. This might require a far too in-depth answer. Figured I'd ask anyway. But I have a very possessive dog when it comes to.
That's real quick.
A very possessive dog when it comes to Tug, and he doesn't enjoy bringing the Tug back for more, even when he's attached to me with a leash, and I'm running around like a crazy person trying to get him excited to play with me. Any small things I can do to make progress, any specific resources I should check out. I don't think that would require really too much of an in-depth answer. I think there's a number of little things, principle-wise, that could be touched on. Dave, what do you think?
So this is the kind of question where I would go, I can't answer that without asking you like 70 questions, because there's like, what is that dog's life like? What do they do all day? right? Like, so if they're just like dead on the floor, like a fucking dead animal, and then like you come home from work 9 hours later, and you're like, play with me. Well, you're not really that exciting. You're not that valuable. You're a break in the monotony. Like, there's endless variables that could be creating this. To me, like to me, like I couldn't even just be like, oh, just try this. I don't know anything about the dog. There's too many things that could be affecting this.
So what I'll do is I'll look at stuff like this, and I won't give any information on methods to fix it, like you just said, because there's 70 plus questions that need to be asked.
Yes. Yeah.
So what comes to mind when I think of that question is a couple of principles, not methods or solutions, because we can, none of us can give any solutions on this whatsoever. You can't, Michelle. So, thank you for your question. We're not going to give you methods or steps or solutions, but I think maybe we can work on some perspective on what even is the game of tug. A dog who's really consumed with possession, to me, is a dog who has learned a different version of the game than I want to play. I don't want to play a game where possession is victory. I want to play a game where winning or engagement is victory. So, when we're looking at tug, I want to create a situation where the dog wants to bring, obviously you do too, Michelle, that's why you're asking this question. The dog wants to bring it to me. Well, why would he want to bring it to me? If merely possessing it is victory for him and he's content with running away, because that's what he wants. He wants to take it and run away. I need to give him a different type of victory. And that victory could be winning possession. Well, once you've won possession, I want the dopamine, I want his arousal, his pleasure to go down. So the only way he can get more is to bring it back to me so we can play again, so he has the opportunity to win on a rebite or win on whatever behavior I want to reinforce. And that's where, Michelle, when you go around on the internet and you see these, very skilled trainers where they let go of the toy and the dog brings the toy back in. Some of the dogs even aggressively slam their handler with toy. That dog has learned that possessing is boring. Winning possession is fun. The only way to win possession is to keep playing. You see where I'm going with this, Michelle? That's what I'm thinking is something's missing in how you taught the game. And like David said, without asking 70 plus questions, we can't tell you how to fix it. Because I don't know how you're playing the fucking game. But you played it in a way where possession and isolation were more valuable than winning.
I would say, without asking anything, that dog thinks it's more fun to play without you.
Yeah.
And you should be like the dog should. To me, a dog with good engagement thinks everything's better with you. Like, this is boring as hell, So like, if I give this, to my youngest dog, he'd slam it into me. If I gave this to my oldest dog, technically she would slam. She'd just punch me. Like, dude, I can't play tug by myself.
You are the game.
Yeah, I'm the fucking game. Like, this is not the game. This is just what's bridging two different species together to play the game, right? This is just what allows us to play with that dog. This is not the game. The tug is not the game. The game is the game. And that dog probably doesn't understand the game, or they have a different understanding, so you're trying to play a different game than they are, which is super common. That's what most dogs, you let go of the tug, they run away. And you're like, what the fuck? That's normal because they weren't taught how to play. But then again, neither was the human.
Yeah, essentially, I would say I have to repeat the same information you guys have to do, is that it's not about the actual object that I'm using for my reward, whether it's indirect or direct. It's about me with that object and where it comes from, and it's consistently the same thing, no matter what it is. It's me producing that object, making that object fun, making those things great, whether it's the same thing with food or nothing like that. It still comes from me. I am the best thing in your life. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. You bring that to me. As soon as that object gets thrown out, we play tug. You bring it back to me. We play. That's pretty much it. You know, we are the game. And like, that's where we talked about earlier when it comes to socialization. I think this tags in very well, is that we should always be the number one to, you know, in their world, right? Because you, like you said, Dave, like, you know, we're playing God in that essence of things.
Yeah.
You know, and
To me,
that's where we should be at.
Yeah. Like, to me as a dog owner, you are God. Unfortunately, whether you like it or not, like, everything in that dog's life has to go through you. Like, I tell people all the time when they humanize their dog, like, that's not your child, but it is your dependent.
Yep.
Like, they are dependent on you for every single thing in their life. They're not supposed to be independent. It defies nature. It defies science. It defies the animal, right? They're supposed to be with you. So now, again, take that exact concept and apply it to Tug. It's supposed to be with you, all right? You're not like, here, take this leather toy and fuck off. Like,
yep.
They're supposed to be over there holding this board, like, but I'd rather play with you. You know, like, that's like the kid standing in the driveway with a basketball, like, looking at dad, like, but I don't want to play by myself. I want to, like, this would be so much better if you would come out here and play with me. You know, like your dog's supposed to do this with you. So that, like, to me, the dog just simply doesn't understand the game. But most dogs don't. Most people don't. Like, I didn't for years. I was training dogs for years before, like, truly understanding, like, how that game works, right? And I think it's one of the most overlooked things in dog training, is just playing with your dog.
Just having fun,
like,
makes that you're the one, you know?
But how to do that productively, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I posted a video about this. I posted it, and I knew that, like, 99% of people are going to watch this video and not get it. But that's fine. I don't really care. So I posted a video and wrote, like, it's not supposed to be about the toy. It's like this whole subject right here. It's supposed to be about the game. So the video was just like, I took Manic outside. I had a handler vest. It looked like I put on 25 pounds because, like, every pocket was, like, bulging. So I pulled out a Frisbee and I'm like, yes. And he grabbed it and starts playing tug. That's not a tug, right? But he's playing tug. And then I pulled out a ball and a string. Yes. And he let go of that, grabbed that, pulled out. Yeah, let go, grab that, pulled out. And everything I put, like a fucking clown car, just kept, like more just keeps coming out of the vet. And he would just let go, grab that, and play the same game. And none of the toys were the same. Because if you know how to play the game, it doesn't matter what you're using, right? Like, yep. I can hand you, like, a fucking plastic coffee cup and go, let's play basketball. That trash can is that's the hoop, and we can play. We can play, right? You don't have to have the right tools if you know how to play the game. And I posted, it got like no fucking views, and like people didn't understand what. I don't care. It's not why I posted it. I posted it for
that the important 1%. Part.
Yeah, for that 1% of people that were like, wow, like, I'm gonna try to do that with my dog. And it's not like all of my dogs can do that. Right, like, because I didn't train them well enough or diverse enough that they can understand that game. It takes real training for that dog to really know how to play with you. And if you don't do that on purpose, how would they know? You know, I think that's like playing with your dog properly is something like more trainers really should focus on, because it matters so much. Like, a dog's in a dog's mind, everything's just fucking butterflies and rainbows. Everything's about having fun, right? Like, you go to the park to wear them out, they go to have fun. You go to that trial field to win, they go to have fun. You pick up that leash to go train them and they go to have fun. Like, it's all like, they're just trying to have fun. They don't give a fuck about your goals or obedience. Like, if you train them right, it's all a fun game, right? Like, protection work, if your dog, if you're not looking for this civil monster, you can just train them. It's a game. No social dog in the world knocking down decoys in a suit because they're just like, oh, you're wearing my favorite toy. It's just all how you train them. Like, you can train them. Everything is a game if that's what you want. They just got to know how to play.
Well, I came in at the right moment. I'm glad I caught that. That was well said, man. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
A lot. I got a question, because, you know, Dave, I don't know you. I don't know how you've trained outside of. I took a look ahead of time at some of your Instagram stuff, and I look at shows like this as an opportunity for me selfishly to get to like pick the brain of someone else who's doing great things. So my question is about markers and what markers do you use? No, this isn't. I'm not. This isn't loaded. It's a sincere question. Like, what markers do you use?
This is loaded as fuck, Katie.
So I actually probably I know you. So like Mike has like a 1-click or a 2-click, right?
I wasn't even going there. Like Mike went there.
No. Mine is.
It's a marker, motherfucker.
I definitely go a lot farther with it than that. Not with my regular clients, because like you can watch people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about like crazy marker proofing exercises and shit. But like with Manic, his marker training is way beyond what I would normally do with a dog. So he has a lot of markers. Mm-hmm. So like with a clicker, he does have a duration and a terminal marker, but it's not 1 and 2. It's just 1 and multiple. Because I use the multiple for different things. Like if the dog's like 100 feet away and I go click, click, they'll run to me for that reward. But if I'm like click, 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 they're going to run faster because they're like getting more. Every click is, like a little explosion in their brain. But like I have a bunch of markers. So like if I'm healing with Bannock, one marker can tell them it's like the reward's in my left. One tells them go behind my back. It's in my right. One tells them keep going. One tells them it's over there. One, so like he has a bunch of markers. But to me, like proper marker training, how the fuck are you even training your dog if you don't understand marker training? Because to me, one of the most common beliefs in dog training since the beginning of dogs is it's all about repetition, right? And it is. It obviously is. But if you do it really well, it could be 25 reps. If you don't understand it at all, it might take you 3,000 to get those 25 reps. And like I can't fully. It would take like a 30-minute breakdown. Like I go like really deep into markers in what's usually my first lesson. But if the handler doesn't understand timing and when they're supposed to mark and when they're supposed to reward and like all that stuff, that lack of understanding is why it took you 1,000 reps to get a really good down. It should have taken 30. It should have taken 100. It should have taken, it shouldn't take that much if your markers are good, because that's the most basic verbal communication you have with a dog. That's not a command, right? A command is advanced shit. Commands are like, I want you to go do this. A marker is just going, I like that. Or I don't like that. Or keep going, like it's really basic stuff. But
let's break down markers for the people who don't really understand.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Dog training. So let's break down a marker. Katie.
A cue, a signal that you are giving the animal that lets them know they did what you want them to do. And I kind of hesitate when I say that because my markers have more in-depth meaning than just that. Mm-hmm. Like me, for example, if I am using a clicker, my click means 3 different things at the same time. It means I love what you just did. You don't have to do it anymore. Now come get food from my hand.
Right.
Now that third piece, I have to give credit where credit is due. I added that third piece in after having some really long conversations with Nino Trower from SDS Canine. I used to just have the click mean, I like what you did. You don't have to do it anymore. Go do what you want.
So it's a release.
It was a release so I could throw a ball and the dog would be engaged with me. When I clicked, the dog didn't come to me. The dog went and got the ball.
Right. And that's not what that means.
For that dog, that's what it meant. But when I started talking with him and he kind of helped me get a little bit deeper, that you can have more markers, you can get more specific with your markers, you can add in, come get food from my hand. And then you could say, if it's to go get a ball or to go get something in the environment, it can be a different marker. And I really liked that, especially with regards to my pet clients, because sometimes they might not realize or recognize that what the dog wants in that moment might be something inappropriate. So the click could release the dog into something that they don't want the dog released to. So I added in the come get food from my hand when I used, the clicker. And then what I started doing was, if it was a release into a toy, like it really isn't a release. I made it the bite command. So it's not a release, it's a command that's reinforcing. Go bite that thing you want to bite. It's a command, kinda, but really it's I know what you want right now. Now go do that. So if I click, you'll come to me to get the food, and then if I go, after you get the food down, you'll go grab the ball, grab the decoy, whatever. And then what I'm also doing is, like with my pet clients especially, I start building in a release before I even get into a clicker or a yes or any of that. So I do a lot of threshold work. The first thing my clients work on is threshold work. Crate and exterior doors, where the dog is not allowed to leave or cross that threshold without a cue or without a release. So if I say break, that means I made up this term. It's like a movement marker. It's like, you did what I want you to do. Now I'm allowing you to move. And you can move wherever you want to move to. So they're building up the dog's knowledge of what break means, or free, or the release. They're building that up at thresholds. They're building it. Now we're doing some obedience and some behaviors, and they're either using a clicker or they're saying yes as a marker to say, I like what you did, come get food in my hand. And then eventually they meet. Once the dog becomes fluent on a behavior, fuck a clicker. I don't use a clicker once the dog understands what shit is. Now if I tell a dog down, I don't need the precision of the clicker. The dog down, I can say break. Sometimes more, I'm not going to live with, my clients aren't going to live with food on them forever. So sometimes movement, freedom is the reinforcer, because that's what the dog wants at that moment. And we always got to know what our dog wants at any given moment. So, when we talk about what is a marker or what is a release, because a release, from our perspective, it's a release. From the dog's perspective, it could be a marker. It's I'm supposed to do, and now I get to do what I want.
And to me, I would still do it as a release marker, though. So, like, if my dog, so I could go down, and they're 50 feet away. Good, and they stay there. Good, and they stay there. Yes, and they run over to me and get a reward. Or I get it, and they go get the reward over there. I'm just telling them, I love what you did. Your paycheck's right there. I love what you did. Your paycheck's right here. I love what you did. Your pay, it's over here. But it's, if I go down, free. It's still a marker, because I'm going, I like what you did.
Yep.
Do whatever the fuck you want, right?
Yep.
Like you're free to go. It is a marker. If the dog finds that rewarding, that's great. But they found the reward rewarding too. I'd still say that's a marker, not a command, because you can't really command your dog to be free, right? Like,
that's incongruent, because that's
right.
Freedom isn't
right.
commanded.
Yeah, you can't be like, I want you to relax right now. Well, that's not really the way it works. Like people have a reason to get mad at you when you tell them to calm down.
Or relax.
It doesn't work on command. Like, you can't command me to do that. You can't command your dog to just be free now. You can release them, right? So it's like I like when you're a kid and your mom goes, go to your room. Well, two things. So, like, regarding those markers, one, she didn't have to tell you to stay there, right? You didn't just pop in your room and go, I did it. and then go fuck off and do whatever you want. Like it's an implied stay, just like you teach our dogs. It's an implied, right? There's an implied, stay when you say down. What part of down includes like walk around and do whatever you. That's not what I said. Like when Dad goes, go to your room. You don't walk in, walk right back out, make a sandwich, sit on the couch. He'd be like, what the fuck did you just smoke in there? Go to your room and stay there, right? Like, they don't have to say that. You know that, right? So, one, there's an implied stay. But two, eventually they're going to come around and go, you can come out. And there's your release marker, right? So your mom eventually walks by and goes, break. And, like, you don't have, it's not a command, though. They didn't walk by and go, get out of your room. They walked by and said, you don't have to stay there. You're free to go. So if you're like, yeah, I'm enjoying my book or whatever, or like, oh, thank God, you're still released. So like I look at a release marker, like it's not a command. You don't have to do that anymore. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm glad the fact that you just brought up the go to your room thing is amazing, because here's why. My father explained to me after the fact, years after the fact, that if I get sent to my room for say 10 minutes, right? He wouldn't start the 10 minutes until I asked to come out. And
so you should ask immediately.
Well, I didn't know. Well, he didn't explain it to me until much later because I didn't figure it out.
You would have just shut the door.
That's some diabolical shit. Like that's like the mind processing thing is a little.
and he explained it to me afterwards. He goes, because when I first send you to your room, you're not upset about going to your room. You're consumed with other thoughts. Maybe you're content in your room. Blah 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 blah. So the punishment, the aversive consequence, doesn't begin until you want to come out. And now I tell you can't. Now you're actually experiencing punishment. So the reason why you bringing that up is awesome, and it makes me think of that is like when we do duration downs with a dog, especially when we do a lot of work with markers where the dogs are really loaded and we're building duration using positive reinforcement, meaning the dog learns, because that's how I'll build duration in the beginning. I just delay reinforcement, delay it. So the dog is like waiting to explode into the release, right? The dog isn't really learning control and obedience until the first time he gets up prematurely. And then I let him know, either if it's a puppy, I'm usually a little more patient. I just don't reward, and he gets frustrated and he starts over. But when I start getting towards fluency, and I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, like you broke that down. Now there's boom. That's when he really understands duration. That's when the dog really understands that it's yielding to your command, it's yielding to your control. But that doesn't happen until he finally asks to get up. That doesn't happen until he finally is like, well, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Because we can use positive reinforcement via a marker, build duration that way. Great. But it's still, the dog is working for what we have. And I've noticed, especially with pet clients, they're not going to go on a tournament field. They don't need a loaded dog exploding through things for points. They do need a little bit of where the dog is finally acquiescing to their down, and the dog is ready to do a 20-minute down or a place, if you're using a place mat or something. And the dog doesn't really learn those final steps and final pieces until he wants to get up. He doesn't learn that until he says, well, fuck your food and fuck your toy. I'm going to go over here. And you're like, no, you're not. And that's like me asking, can I come out now? And my dad saying, no. And now he sets the 10-minute timer. Just when you said that, Dave, it instantly kind of like connected a bunch of dots for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, definitely.
And I learned that, with the dogs, it was from dabbling with pets, then getting into working dogs, and then going back to pets. I had a little bit of a problem because the way
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, because I had dogs on placemats and in downs that were loaded.
Yep.
Because if I'm looking at sport, I want an active dog. I want an active dog. When he hits the down, I want him like this in the down because he's waiting for the next command. He's waiting to execute it with precision and enthusiasm for the judges. And building duration using anticipation works wonders with that. That's not what the pet dog owner wants or needs. No. They don't need a dog that thinks that, like, when are you going to release me?
Yeah, because it defeats the purpose of why they used it.
Completely. So balancing how I build duration between the dog learning to wait for delayed gratification, learning to wait for the release, but at the same time creating opportunities for that dog to also be punished for breaking the command, and a little bit of suppression, absolutely some suppression going in there. So the dog is like, you know what? I'm content with here because I know you're controlling my life. And like, I'm just going to chill here because I'm cool with it. Because for 15,000 years, I was bred to be cool with it. There is a difference between the active sport dog and the content with being chill pet dog. And that's a tricky balance to navigate.
Yeah.
So
very.
Let's go ahead and talk about, and just the last question would be, what would be, as far as protection training, because you guys have both done it beforehand, how has that helped you guys in dog training in general?
How has what helped?
Protection training.
Oh, jeez, that's a good fucking question. Dave, go ahead. That one first. I'm thinking.
I've actually said this before. I feel like the amount of knowledge I've gained from protection work is easily the hardest to articulate. It's the most, I guess, pun intended, primal training you're really doing with the dog, right? Like you're training them to use their most basic instincts to an extremely high degree. Like, you don't need to teach a dog how to fucking bite, but we've learned how to really well, right? Like we've learned how to teach them better than they teach themselves. But the amount of information that I've learned from doing bite work is so ridiculous. Like, I don't know how I would be able to put that into words. I don't know how I apply so much shit that I've learned to what I do all the time. Like yesterday, I was doing a lesson on here, and I was like, "Hold on one second." So I ran out of the room, and I came back with a clatter stick, and she's like, "What? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, what is this like broken piece of bamboo?" But I was using it as an example of like how you can use distractions to start like adding like environmental pressure on your own on purpose to build up your dog's focus and engagement and confidence, and like how to desensitize them to the world around them. I was just using a clatter stick because if it was an in-home lesson, that's the first fucking tool I would grab. Like, all right, I'm going to clatter this. You try to like I'm going to make noise with this. You keep their attention. But it's not about the tool. It's not because that tool is used in bite work. I learned how to desensitize dogs to their environment better from doing bite work, which you would think has nothing to do with it. But it has everything to do with it. It has everything to do with everything. You got to understand that animal on a dramatically deeper level. And if you don't, well, that's why your protection dog also fucks up anyone else who's welcome to come in the house. That's why they're like a terrorist when they're not clocked in. Like you can't even enjoy them when they're not biting a decoy. Because you didn't understand the animal when you were teaching them. But to me, the amount of information is like beyond words. Like, I don't know how I could ever define that. It's too much.
That's tons. We have to be on here for like 7-8 hours.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like you could do a whole workshop where you're just sitting there talking about like, well, this is shit you do in bite work, but this can apply to your pet. Like, I learned this in bite work, but your golden doodle could really benefit from this philosophy. It doesn't mean you're going to like put a agitation collar on or breaking out the sleeves, but but there's so much stuff that you learn doing this because you have to understand the animal on a more natural, instinctual level to do this successfully. You know, you have to learn that animal more or learn about that animal more.
JD.
When I go back to my early years when I was doing, I mean, there was a period in time back in like 2004, 2003, 2004, where most of what I was doing was personal protection, right? It was biting and street application, right? I was doing more of that than obedience. And this is before I knew the quadrants. This was before I met my mentor. This is before I had any idea of behavioral science. What I learned from those experiences working really weak dogs, I learned a lot about association and pictures. The pictures the dog sees, preparing the dog for pictures it would see in real life, and making sure what I was doing in training wasn't so ridiculously obsolete that it would have no carryover to the real world. I learned about the association between something as simple as teaching an alert command, right? Your old school, watch him. Watch him.
Yeah.
Who's that? Who's that? Right? And to anybody watching this, you know who I might have learned under using the words "who's that" with a Long Island accent. You know, I learned from some old school motherfuckers, and teaching the dog that when I said "who's that," that whatever person was in closest proximity was probably about to do something aversive. And the dog associating that verbal cue with an anticipated behavior, the potential bad guy, and the dog being intelligent enough to learn based on my teaching that if the dog then exhibited a specific behavior, he could prevent that aversive behavior from ever happening at all. Boop, 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 boop. I mean, talk about back chaining, right? Like, talk about chaining together different things. Like, I learned all of that without knowing any of the nomenclature, without knowing any of the science behind it, just through trial and error, seeing what worked, making mistakes that ruined dogs, and then carrying that over into, wait a minute, that's the same thing in obedience. When I tell a dog to sit, he's learning an anticipated holy shit, behavior is really all behavior. It doesn't matter the context if we understand the principles. And you know, I always take any opportunity I can to quote Pat Nolan, a wonderful trainer and contributor to the dog training community. And he said, you know, if we don't understand the principles, we'll be a slave to the method forever. And damn, Pat, like that's deep. Man.
Yeah.
Like, if you we're talking that this question was in the context of like bite work and protection work, but there were lessons there that carry over to anything you do with a dog because the principles of behavior are universal. And if we understand those, we as trainers can have very amicable conversations about methods. We can, oh, how do you do it? Oh, you use 2 clicks, you use 20, I use 1, right? It's okay though, because we understand the principles and the end result is the dogs are learning the behaviors we're teaching them. So we're not arguing. Okay, the old adage, put 3 dog trainers in a room and all 2 can agree the third. Bullshit. That's bullshit. Because when all 3 trainers understand the principles of behavior, there's no fucking arguments. They share and they exchange how they individually apply those principles to their methods that work for them, and they have great conversation, they have great dialogue, and they leave those dialogues reflecting on that because they're on the same behavioral page.
Oh yeah. And that's why Drinks and Dogs is here.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
It should be a discussion.
Right? It's always discussion. And like that's like the thing that, you know, that's the most important thing for me is that you know, that's why we started this whole entire program, was to bring this discussion out, and make sure we all know the same thing. But it is actually running off on time here, so
Damn, 2 hours went fast.
2 hours, guys. So
Crazy.
I appreciate you guys for being on here. Absolutely, we'll have our offline discussion. But I appreciate you guys for being on here. Make sure you guys follow, obviously, Katie Mathews, David from Canine Karma, everybody out there. This is a thing that we're going to continue to do every week, just to, like Katie said, expose, just different perspectives in dog training, and just go from there. But we can always have a conversation. So thanks for tuning into I think it's eighth. This is the 8th episode of
I think it's 7 at the top.
7th or 8th, yeah.
Is it seventh episode of Jinx and Dogs, and we have 438 people, so that's awesome.
Thank you, Mike. And Dave, it was awesome getting to meet you, man.
You too, man. This is awesome.
Hell yeah, guys. I appreciate you guys, and then we'll be talking offline here pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. I'll see you in a second.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yep.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you.